crowd that we're going to get. I think we'll probably stick in here for at least a little bit. I know we did kick out the drama club as they were rehearsing.
Sure,
do you know anybody in drama club?
Just a couple.
Yeah. So Stephanie Scanlon will probably march back in here, see this crowd, laugh at me, throw something at me if we don't move. So at some point we might, out of courtesy to them, say, you know, after Pat's presentation, Dr. Sullivan's presentation, move folks somewhere so they can get on with that until 6 o'clock. But very happy that folks have turned out. We appreciate you coming out, especially on such short notice. You know, we know we've been sending emails like it's impossible with not having finalists until a certain date to know exactly when these forums could be scheduled, but we know folks have been putting it on their calendar and saving some days this week, and we're happy you did. It's important for our future educational leader to hear from staff, so this is the first of 3 days that we'll be doing something like this. I hope to see you tomorrow, and I hope to see you Thursday, but tonight we have a great candidate here with us, Dr. Pat Sullivan. He's the current superintendent in Cohasset, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you. Well, I'll move this way because it's, you know, it's a large auditorium and just like scatterings of people here. But it's funny, the you know, kicking the drama club out. But my oldest son, Cooper, is in the drama club, so I'll be kicking him out, which I'll hear later for sure. He's actually singing the national anthem at the basketball game tonight. Of course, I won't be there because I'll be in a parental forum, which is fine. It's good. But anyway, as Sean mentioned, my name is Pat Sullivan, and I am absolutely honored to be a candidate for superintendent. In many ways, this is the job that even though I may not have known it from the beginning, that I was working to try to get. By way of just getting to know me a little bit, I grew up in Marshfield, so and I've always been in Marshfield. I went to South River School, kindergarten, first and second. Went to Governor Winslow, although we didn't move. They moved the redistricting line. Governor Winslow 3, 4, and 5. And I went to Furnace Brook, 6th grade. They had a 6th grade year that year. And then 7th and 8th was at Martinson, which was the middle school. And then 9 through 12 at the high school. So the possibility of coming back to Marshfield means a lot to me from that perspective. In fact, it meant so much to me that after I graduated high school, I went to Bates College and came back from Bates. I had the lucky opportunity to get a job working summer school in Marshfield, which isn't, people always don't think that's a great opportunity, but it gave me a leg in to try to get a teaching job, and a gentleman named Dick Gardner hired me as an English teacher. And it was one of those moments in your life when you're, and this isn't because I was so good, because that wasn't it at all. It was that just being in front of the kids and teaching them, I could tell just by being with them that I knew who they were, and I knew the struggles that they were going through, and I felt in my heart that I was meant to be there and to work with those kids. You know, just by way of, in my childhood, and I only say this to get a little sense of who I am, my father passed when I was 12 years old. My brother was 3, so my mother raised us, but that was a real seminal moment in my life. And part of what I got from that was that there were people in my life, and a lot of them were teachers, who helped me and supported me, but I learned the value of productive struggle. And what that really means is, and I was asked this in the previous interview, is, you know, what would be the profile of a graduate coming out of Marshfield High School if I were to say, you know, what it would be. And to me, it would be to be a resilient person. Because we're in a time now where knowledge is not the same commodity that it used to be. It's not just, you know, you can find things quickly, find out information, but you have to know what to do with that information, and you also have to know what questions to ask regarding that information. And when things don't go well, whether it's personal, academic, in your job, in your life, you have to know how to regroup and reiterate and do a 2.0 of it. And I want our kids really to be able to do that. Just a few things, and then I will open it up to questions, because you probably have questions, just about my beliefs. You can see this, I put some of them together on paper, but just to encapsulate a few of the things that really make me tick as a leader. I believe in student-centered leadership. I've always used the adage since I started teaching, from research for better teaching. that, we want everyone who comes into this building, we want to make sure that they echo in our hallways the following 3 messages for our kids, that what we're doing here is important, that they can do it, and that we will not give up on them. That's a really important thing for kids to know, that we're there to support them. And I want to try to inspire a lot of student voice. And one of the things I did when I came to Cohasset is I formulated a student advisory committee. And we've had that here before, a superintendent's advisory committee. I think there was a time when I was here as a leader that maybe it wasn't as needed at the superintendent level. It was very needed in Cohasset because they didn't have a lot of, that I saw, student voice opportunities, and I wanted to inspire that from my level. And what we did was very simple. We just took our team and we went to other schools in the district and we gathered student voice. So it became kind of like this collection of student voice, which was nice. It's very important to me to build relationships. Relationships are the foundation of everything. And I think sometimes those relationships just come from being a good human being. I mentioned this also in the last interview, but this is an interview, but I had a great professor at my graduate program who his whole adage in dealing with people in social emotional learning was that everyone carries with them a quiet burden. And I thought that was very empathetic and very emotionally intelligent, because if you think about it, everyone that you encounter is going through something. And sometimes those things weigh on you heavy, and sometimes they're not so heavy, but they're still there under the surface. And I think if you go about working with people in that way, that you can make better decisions, because you're not looking at a person in front of you acting in some way as just that. You really look at it as an iceberg, and you can really get to the heart of what that person's going through. Actually, I'd say Superintendent Granatino, working with him and watching what he does with people, that inspired me. He's very good at that, as I'm sure you all know, of really working with people in that way. It's something that is important to me. The idea of instruction is something that is obviously hugely important. I'm a superintendent of schools. Instruction to me needs to be explicit. And what I mean by explicit instruction is it's not direct instruction. It's that we all know what we're shooting for, that there are mileposts along the way for students to follow and to check off to get to that point, and that we inspire authentic assessment. And sometimes that's bringing in the community to create authentic audience regarding that. These are things that are crucial. And again, in instruction, a lot of student voice. But I think that really honed in instructional focus would do well for any district. And I think it's going to help here. I'm hugely into making sure that we inspire equity, inclusion, diversity, cultural responsive teaching, which again I think has a lot to do with explicit instruction, and it also has a lot to do with relationship building. If you can create those windows and mirrors in your classrooms, and sometimes it's just creating making sure that everybody in that room has something that they're connected to within that room. And of course in Marshfield, I can speak to that as a former student here, you want to make sure that you're reflecting out too. You're not only socially aware, but you're learning about cultures. But just making people feel special in that room and getting to know them and talking to the kids, not at them, I think is really important, and it's something I've always tried to do. Engagement is huge. I'll just give you a couple of things that have inspired me as a parent in Marshfield. Mrs. Kelly, who was a first grade teacher at Martinson, I'll never forget that she did. And I don't know Mrs. Kelly, or I met her maybe once or twice, but something that she did that really inspired me as a parent is my son Liam, who was in first grade. She sent home a picture on the first day of school. He had a frame around him, and in it said, your son Liam is a rock star. Liam rocked it today. I'm so excited to have Liam in my classroom. And I'm telling you, just looking at his face in that frame, it like welled me up. I was like, wow, this is cool. He's only in first grade, and all my fears are sort of allayed right now about who he's with, because this person cares about my kid. That had such an impact on me that with my first opening teacher's day in Cohasset, I showed that picture. And I said, I just want you to know how this inspired me. And you're all wonderful. And you all do this in your classrooms. But don't forget that personal touch means a lot. Just coming here today, I got a note from Mrs. Bacon in 6th grade that talked about Charlotte, my daughter Charlotte, really loving the book that she was reading. And what was incredible is I drove Charlotte to school today, and she couldn't stop talking about the book. And I was like, that's so great. I was going to write her a note to tell her how inspiring that was. But those little moments of engagement mean a lot. And to me, that's really important. Having been a middle school educator and a middle school principal, that communication is intense, and it needs to be consistent. It needs to be almost immediate. And you need to let the people know that you're working with a middle school, that you're with them. You know, I told this story when I was in the leadership meeting, but when at my first, and I've told this before, I think you can be a great teacher without being a parent, right? But it helped me when I became a parent to be a better teacher. And one of the ways it did is that my oldest son, his name is Cooper, as some of you know because you've had him. But Cooper, I remember going into kindergarten and listening to the whole thing at Martinson about the academics and the things they're going to do socially, emotionally, and then going into the lunchroom. And all I kept thinking about was, how is Cooper going to get through this lunch line? Okay, and that it just dawned on me, it gave me a perspective of what you go through as a parent. And then going back to, at the time, Furnace Brook, and I was the principal of Furnace Brook, and working with the Furnace Brook group, and I realized, like, every single parent in here has a Cooper. And is something that's special. It means something to them. And now I'm in middle school. I have middle school kids. And I realize, and they're great kids, don't get me wrong, but they're middle school kids. And what is that really, right? I mean, it's a ball of confusion that you're trying to work with at times. There's so much social growth and academic growth happening at once. And it really takes a village to help those kids. But that's sort of my philosophy of family engagement, is I'm with you. I may not have all the right answers, but I'm with you, and I'm going to try to make that work. And just a couple other things, then I'll open up to questions. But the whole child is very important to me, and to inspire systems that help the whole child. It's very important that kids come out of Marshfield High School after going through the elementaries and the middle school well-rounded and very much in touch with what they find are their strengths. Of course, we know it's only the beginning of the growth, right? What they think are their obstacles or grows, right? I've learned that, glows and grows, from working with elementary over the last few years. That's really good, by the way, glows and grows. Like, I want kids to know their glows and grows when they come out of high school. And that, if I look back at what my glows and grows were coming out of high school, they're actually different now than they were then, because I think I worked so hard at what I needed to grow in that it became some of my strengths. That's resiliency. That's productive struggle. That's what I think we want to inspire with our kids. And then the final thing that I'll just say is that I want to be a good listener. I think of the years I've been in Cohasset now, if I think about my grows as a leader, that's my biggest area of growth. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I always had really good ideas. I think I listen better now. And so if given this opportunity, I take it as something that was very special to me, because it is. It's really about my whole heart here in Marshfield. And I look forward to the possibility. And if I'm not picked as a superintendent, still going to be in Marshfield, and I'm still going to support all of you, and really, because you're really the important people in my career, because my career is here, no matter where I am. So that's who I am, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have. But I look forward to this process, and I'm pretty easy to find. You can always find me if you have any questions you want to ask individually as well. So, I don't know, Mr. Costello, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
So you know what, Dr. Sullivan, I am more than comfortable if you want to just call on people. knowing your teaching background, you can certainly, if anybody has a question, you just want to raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull out the popsicle stick. But I'm going to start with Mary Beth. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just
No,
kidding.
I will. I actually do have a question for you.
Oh, okay,
So,
then I'll go second.
my question is this. So you talk about resiliency with students. And I know I'm the coordinator of comprehensive health, so that's something that we talk about a lot, is how do we build resiliency with kids. And I think coming out of COVID and, anxiety levels for students and the number of students on 504s and all of that, what is something that you have done in Cohasset, or maybe you'd like to do, that would help to improve resiliency for kids? I would say specifically at high school, but I think it's also elementary and middle. So is there something that you've done?
Yeah, well, we've woven a lot of that into, I'm going to start with the elementary. Like we do responsive classroom, and we have our morning meetings. And I think our morning meetings have turned into a lot of reflection. At the very young levels, you're doing a lot of mindful moments, and you're getting them moving and active. But we've done a lot of, whether it be in, if you move up the levels, whether it be in a student advisory, or different groups that we have, to let them talk about things that they're going through, and to be able to share those thoughts back and forth, I think has been really important. So I think the use of advisory and the use of those types of groups are great, but I also think just modeling overcoming challenges. So like, I think the way education is moving is to more have a challenge. This is project-based learning, right? So you have a challenge, and then you do different iterations of solutions, and then you have a lot of voice and choice in how are you solving it, how are you solving it, to make kids know and build. So even like something like building math fluency, you're just making sure that you're not giving one right way to solve a problem, that you're letting students talk about how they solve the problem, whether it's I do this with my third grader all the time. I tell them it's 46 plus 23, right? And then I say, how did you solve that? And then I said, I solved it this way. So I think what the point is, I think if we teach kids that their voice in their own way can build to a solution, but there isn't just one solution, and that if you don't get it, try it again. And if you don't get it, how did this person do it? Can you learn from that person? So to kind of create a community of that, but I think a lot of it has to do with a social emotional approach, and then also making sure that we challenge students with high-ordered questions that require voice and choice and lots of different ways to solve problems. I think, because that's key. If you have a problem and you only have one way of dealing with it, that's not good. You need to be able to step aside, step back, turn around sometimes, and solve the problem. So I think we can inspire it in little ways, and then we can inspire it more in those big ways too.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Stephanie?
So in the time I've been a teacher, which is getting longer and longer with every minute, there's been a real breakdown of partnership between teachers and parents. And post-COVID, it's gotten incredibly aggressive to the point where something that happens in a classroom or in an activity finds itself very quickly at the superintendent's office, bypassing all others. And we have parents that can be quite formidable. What do you see your role in bridging the gap and managing situations where we've got a determined parent and a really convincing argument on the school end? How will you handle that situation? What is your approach to handling the mediation of that situation, and to what degree is, what's the word I'm looking for? To what degree is the teacher's professional?
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm trying to, like, yeah.
So first of all, let me just be really clear. The most important relationship in the buildings is the relationship between the teacher and the student. Because, and I extend this to be anyone who directly works with a kid one-on-one. My job is to support that. So it's really important to me. You mentioned sort of the chain of command. That's kind of a tough phrase.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is the superintendent can't be swooping in and trying to solve a problem in a first grade classroom right away, right? Like it has to start, like I have tremendous faith. I was a teacher for like 13, 14. I still feel like a teacher. I've had administrators come up and they say, you know, once you're an administrator, you're not a teacher anymore. I don't believe that. I believe like we're all in this together. We're all just helping out that relationship between the teacher and the student. And again, I'm extending teacher to be anyone working directly with the kid. So I want to make sure that you have a chance to carve that out with the teacher, and you're being supported by sometimes department chairs, sometimes assistant principals, sometimes principals. You know, you all need to work that through. Would I listen to a parent? Yeah, I want to listen to parents, but I'm not. My job is to make sure, first of all, everybody knows we're a team, and that there might be things that we talk about aside that will help the team. But you know, I certainly want to play a role in it, but I think the role is played at a much higher, not a higher level, but a much more supportive level to make sure that relationship is integral. Now, there's also accountability, and it is my job to make sure that we're all accountable for what we do in any environment we're in. But I think, again, that's very transparent, and that's very open about expectations. And that's still, even that accountability is done through those channels. So that's my role. My role, I think, is to get us moving in one direction and to support you as a teacher to be autonomous to be authentic, not autonomous, because we're all authentic in your classroom in doing what you do and doing it well, working with the people around you. And that includes your back and forth with families. I also, though, very much respect the passion of families. I'm in Cohasset. Cohasset's an amazing community, has very passionate families. Okay, and I mean that in a good way. I like that. That's one of my strengths is I can work with families, and I do respect that passion, and I do try to take a step back because I get it. I get how passionate you can be about your kid. So that is something that I think is really important to do. Both things. Respect the parents, but you got to respect your staff and working with that particular individual. Now, there are maybe circumstances where that needs to break down, but that's a rare one. Yes?
Thank you. My question is, in regards to support staff, ESPs, SESPs, tutors, etc. What have you done, or what would you do to make, sometimes we're a little under the radar and invisible, but what would you or have you done to make support staff feel supported?
That's a great question. So one of the first things, so I'll just go to my roles as assistant super and super for a second. So as assistant superintendent, when I arrived in Cohasset, we didn't really have any productive, when I say productive, we didn't have any professional development that the ESPs thought were meaningful. I know that because that's the first question I asked people, because my job was to run professional development. And you know, if I'm speaking out of turn, you tell me because you're the educators in the classrooms, but I always wanted professional development that was content driven, that was not a one-stop shop, you know, it was sustained, that it provided you with feedback, that it was embedded if possible, and that brought some joy to what you were doing, and you could say it had a purpose, right? And by the way, a lot of those factors are the same factors that create what I just mentioned, the same factors that create a positive work environment, that kind of match. So one of the first things I did is I worked with the ESPs to create differentiated professional development for them. That wasn't always what the teachers were doing. So you didn't need to sit through something the teacher was doing if it didn't mean something to you. And I think they felt validated in that. And, you know, I've tried to continue that type of thing as a superintendent, where when we negotiated our contract, one of the things that I wanted and the union agreed with, because of that very reason, was we had our opening days. Our ESPs didn't go to those. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, we paid them for it, but that they came to those opening days. Because those opening days, we have two professional development days, the Marshfield's one, but we had one day was kind of more, we'd give, well, look, the opening time, you want to be in the classrooms, you want to, I know that.
Right.
That's what people want to do. So I tried to make that happen as much as possible. But I also wanted the ESPs there, because they're a really important factor. In fact, sometimes it's the I talked about that important relationship. Sometimes the ESPs is the most important, because they're like working right with a kid who's struggling on something, or a group of kids, and they're the ones that are really making the connections. So you need to know what the district-wide messaging is. You need to feel that you're part of the team. And then we need to treat you just as we treat everybody else, where you're getting what you need when you need it. So that's what I've tried to do with ESPs. Anyway, this is a start. You're welcome. Yes. What are you doing?
It's Martha Murphy. Hi.
Martha,
I teach 6th grade at Furnace Brook. And
nice. Good for you. Love it.
Thanks. And I'm kind of well, not kind of, I am. I'm a multi-stakeholder because I have kids in the district as well. My 3rd grader plays on the 2015 team with Beckett.
Nice.
And then
The basketball team?
No, the Marshfield United.
Oh, the Marshfield United team.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
I have so much, I mix up my kids all the time, and I don't know where I am half the time on basketball. Sometimes I drive to a basketball thing, and I realize I'm going to soccer. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And then my kindergartner, Ryan, he's a big Cooper fan because he's in Peter Plus with Stacy. So,
Cooper's a big Stacy fan.
Yeah. So as somebody who's passionate about reading, and I know you are a former English teacher as well, or do you consider yourself still an English teacher?
Yeah.
I know that our elementary schools are doing a lot of hard work on pivoting away from a curriculum that maybe wasn't benefiting all learners. They're doing the 6 shifts training.
Shifting the balance.
Yes, yep, and.
We're doing it too.
And you are too. Okay, that's going to be my question. And like some fun, and giving like a phonics patch with foundations, which is fantastic.
We have foundations with Fidelity Eco as a big thing for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess that's my question is, if you start to be our fearless leader, are we going to like adopt? Are we going to move back to balanced literacy, or are we going to? Do you have a reading philosophy?
I do. So I'll back up a little bit. I am not the curator of reading in the district. So there's a lot of very smart people that will be able to impart their knowledge and make a decision as a group. I think the shifting the balance has it right. I actually think the authors of that book are right on.
Yeah.
One of the things that we try to talk about in Cohasset, and by the way, this is like stepping into a flamethrower, I realize that, but no, it's okay. Not that you shot the flamethrower, but it's like, it's a hot topic, right? I mean, there's a lot going on. I don't think there's one right way to do that. I think there's, obviously the Lucy Calkins whole balanced literacy was a lot about motivation, right? It was about the motivating the reading. How you comprehend the words was different than the science of reading, which, is the catchphrase now. But I think you have a couple things at play. You really need to do both. You really need to make sure that you look at everything that we have, so phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, the use of vocabulary, the use of words. You have to look at all that through both lenses. Well, for instance, we talk about comprehensive literacy. You'll never hear me say balanced literacy now, because since the podcast, it's like you don't say balanced literacy, right? But it really isn't balanced literacy. It's comprehensive literacy. We brought in Hegarty for phonemic awareness. That was brazenly stole from Marshfield. But that's okay. You were doing it, and it was working, and we need to look at Hegarty. So we pulled that in. We had foundations. So we're doing lots of that. We are working with Teachers Learning Alliance, as you are as well. And what I like about them is that they're embedding instruction and that they're modeling lessons. I think that's just really good professional development. Now, a lot of that sometimes depends on who you have doing that for you, if it's an effective experience or not. But the philosophy on that, and again, it's people in my position and assistant superintendent, it's our job to make sure that they are good and that they are working with you in the right way. But what we've had in Cohasset has been very productive because it's really helping out with other things too, like how to teach a mini lesson, but also how to work in groups and stations. And, there's verbiage that's being used now. There's differentiations happening. There's some choice in reading that's happening. The instructional level has gone up because of that embedded approach. So I kind of got off of that a little bit, but my philosophy would be our philosophy first of all, and secondly, I think you need both. I really think I was so happy to see that you were doing reading shifting to balance because I think that has a right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ken.
Just a question about curriculum. When adopting a new curriculum, what process do you think should take place between like administration and staff? Or have you done? I'm sorry.
So I was when I was here, but I'm much bigger now on the. You got a team now. So first of all, there has to be a curriculum review cycle. I know there is here. I need to explore it a little more to see how effective it is actually working. But a curriculum review cycle should do a couple things. So when I came into Cohasset, the needs were we had Envision, outdated math program, which wasn't really even that good in my opinion. But who am I? I'm not the math curator. But I didn't think it was very good because my kids used it. But anyway, we had that, and we were using Reading Street in elementary, and the approach wasn't very. It just wasn't very thorough. So we had to actually come up with a new math curriculum, which we chose Bridges, and actually some of the Marshfield folks came over and looked at Bridges, and we implemented that, and a new reading approach, which involved some investment in professional development, investment in personal libraries, all that, at once, and it was a huge problem budgetary-wise. So a curriculum review cycle should put a spotlight on certain subjects throughout a 5-year cycle, and that needs to be done in a team, and the team needs to be made of those people who are actually teaching that discipline. And then we need to talk about and look at what the best curriculum is for us, and that's what's really important. You need to look at all the reviews, and you need to look at what other people have done around us, what the statistics say on how this curriculum helps. But we also need to pick what's right for Marshfield. And I think that's really important. So in terms of administration, it's getting a team together to work on deciding what the curriculum is. And then also to involve stakeholders. Whenever you're doing a new curriculum, you got to involve school committee. You should involve families. And you really should involve, it should be if you're creating a curriculum that is pre-K to 12, it's got to involve everyone. But if you have a curriculum that's just in a particular grade level, you still got to talk about how that's building in. Like for instance, we looked at illustrative math, which we chose for our middle school. We went through a lot of thoughts on that and what we were going to use for it. But we picked it mainly because it tied so well, we felt, and again, when I say we, the team felt it tied well into Bridges and it linked it. So if we're looking at a health curriculum, you might want to look at what are the kids, you should look at what are the kids learning in the elementary levels, what are they going to learn in the middle school, and what are they going to learn at the high school. But actually, the best way to articulate it is the other way. It's from grade 12 down. I learned that through AP, and that the AP model is you got that. That's where you want kids to be if they can be, and then it derives down, and you kind of build that way. So that's how I build curriculum. And again, I say it's we will build curriculum. I just play a little role with that.
Dr. Sullivan, I'm going to interrupt you for a quick second.
Sure.
Anybody who didn't get one of these, at some point, please just make sure you get this for us. This is a an exit survey that we ask you to take. If you're inclined to do so, there's also a QR code down at the bottom. If you do take that via the QR code, that says we're going to shut responses off tomorrow at noon.
Did they get a pizza or something?
Yes, free pizza. So I apologize for interrupting, but just wanted to make sure folks know we have this if you didn't get it. Thank you.
Okay. Sean?
You've been a leader for most of your life. I know that's scary, isn't it? And you've been out of the district for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay? But your hands have been in this district with your kids, and you've watched us grow as you moved on to the thing. Is there a pet project or a thing you would start on day one when you took the job that would change this district in any way, or something you would like to enhance right off the bat?
Well, I mean, I'm going to give the stock answer, which is the right answer. I'm going to do a lot of listening and a lot of learning about what the district needs. But I'll also tell you this. I believe in this district, and I'll just say the middle school for a second. I believe in Furnace Brook. Okay, I believe Furnace Brook when I was there. It wasn't perfect, but there were people that were taking initiative to do things that were really special. Some of the things were, and it wasn't to do with me. It was to do with what they believed in, and my job was just to say yes to that and to sponsor that and to let them light the fire. So I guess what I try to do is try to light some of those fires throughout the district that maybe haven't burned as brightly as they wanted to, and those that are burning brightly, I want to help it. I want to keep burning those fires. So that would be part of my goal, is to, because that's my philosophy really, it's to have a thematic approach moving us in one direction that's collaborative, that we've decided is our vision. You have your strategic plan. You know, I like a lot of things about the strategic plan. I like that we have, you know, we have a focus on learning, exploring, and thriving. That's wonderful, because I know as a parent that sounds a lot like play, passion, and purpose to me, which I think is really important to how kids develop. I mean, I gained my passion when I hit my classroom. I gained my purpose when I learned that I didn't know what I was doing in the classroom, and I needed to be better at it because I really wanted to do this. So I like that. I like that we have those three components of the vision, and yeah, I think that's what I do. Is I try to listen and I try to light a lot of fires under people who really want to make the district better. Now the awkward silence. And now I dance. Is there anything else? Any other questions or anything, subject you'd like me to talk about? I think I can do that.
I'll ask a question about the elementary schools here in town. There, as you know, 5. I've worked at 2, and my daughters have gone to a 3rd.
Yes.
So I really feel that the 5 elementary schools really do have a different personality. And I wonder your thoughts on that. Are you okay with the 5 elementary schools being very unique and different in their own ways?
Yes.
And very positive in their own ways?
Yes.
And would you foster that? Would you continue to foster that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think what I'd like to make sure we're doing, though, is that we're moving in the same direction. And I'm not saying we're not. I think you probably are, but I want to look at that. I don't know. But I want to make sure we're moving in the same direction instructionally, that we're moving in the same direction socially, emotionally. I loved that. I'll give you an example. I loved watching school committee meetings and seeing at Amesway, Caitlin Bishop and her team were doing some SEL work with something that she called the box, right? The Amesway box, which was sort of a unique take on having students express their feelings and their thoughts in a box. And then they had Daniel Webster Connections. You have other people doing different things. Like, that's great, because, and that's really my philosophy in teaching too. You know, you don't have to go about, although I do think there are some common components, like challenging students, thinking of a high level, a higher ordered, in Bloom's, you know, creativity, evaluation, even analysis, you know, like you want to inspire them to do that. So as long as we're doing all that and we're following a curriculum and we're doing things, that feeling of what a building is that's the beauty of it. It's so unique. I loved that when we were at Furnace Brook. We had a really, I thought at the time, very kind of ahead of its time philanthropic vision about what things we brought in there. And I mean, we had, while I was there, and I didn't do any of this except smile and say, this is awesome, right? We had a Nobel Peace Prize winner. We had 2 Lost Boys of Sudan come in. We had a Medal of Honor winner. We had an award-winning author. I mean, this was like, the kids were seeing, you know, we had just from the community, because they knew we were doing this type of thing, we had a gentleman come in who was like beloved by the Dalai Lama. He was a blind man from Ireland who had been blinded in the Troubles in Ireland and spoke to the kids as part of the Peace Building Initiative. I mean, we called these things audacious moments and audacious goals. And I mean that in a positive sense of audacious, like, you know, just go for it. So yeah, I want all the buildings to do that, but I want them to dream big. I want them to do their own thing in their own shining way and do it big. And as long as it's moving in the same direction, I mean, the high schools, you know, that's our flagship, right? So there's so much the high school can do to inspire that and to make Marshfield. I think we do that. But I'd like to keep inspiring that to be a collection of the voices of the staff and the kids that does form a unique voice. It does. Yeah. You know, a chorus is made of beautiful individual voices.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Katie, how are you?
I'm just asking because I'm kind of curious. I don't really know, but like, how do district-wide initiatives get born and like disseminated? Like, how does that whole thing?
So a few things. So sometimes the state tells us you have to do
That's
this.
what I thought.
But there are reasons behind that too, you know. So here's how I'd like district-wide initiatives to be born: out of data. Okay? And what we're looking at is we're being, first of all, we need to be, and this is another area I feel I've grown in over the last few years, is that you really want to be transparent with data. And you really need to, you know, I always used to say that sometimes a mark of a really great teacher is how formatively that teacher checks with their students and how their students are doing. So if you see a really good teacher, you know, stop and say, all right, I want to do a check, see how we're doing here, you're dipsticking in, you know. And that's the same is true about a district, because you want to use data, whether it's social emotional data or academic data, to drive what you're going to do in terms of an initiative. So an initiative without purpose is an initiative that's doomed to fail. An initiative without sustainability is an initiative that's doomed to fail. I've sponsored some that did not continue because I didn't use the right data. And the data is not just quantitative, it's qualitative too. Which means talking to people, getting the voices of the teachers who are in the classrooms with the kids. What is it that you want to see? You know, what do you think is our biggest problem? We have this data point. Let's talk about the data in a dialogue, and then let's get to what do you think some solutions are. But I think you can create an initiative around that. The state does that for us sometimes and hoists an initiative on us. And often those initiatives are unfunded, which can be problematic. But at the root of it is some data. And if we look at that data and it's meaningful to us, and we keep that sense of purpose in front of us, then I think that's where you formulate an initiative. I think I love helping kids and I love inspiring them, and I want to have a lot of opportunities for them to thrive. But over the last 7 years, I've become better at making sure that the initiatives that I sponsor are really driven by data. So that's how I do it. If we want to do something, I want to make sure I'm asking why. And I'm making sure.
A shelf life?
What's that?
Do they have a shelf life?
They totally have a shelf life. I mean, why, do you feel there are things in the...
Oh, no, I just don't know. I'm just curious.
Well, you'd have a better answer. I feel like sometimes there's things that we do.
I mean, is there supposed to be one? Like, say it comes down from the state and they're like, we really think everyone needs to be doing this. Do they say, like, this is your time frame, or do they leave that up to the district, or like, how does that work?
Sometimes a little of both. I mean, I think sometimes they do tell you what you need to do, and you know, they're pushing towards some canned curriculums, and sometimes they test it, right? So they kind of, I mean, they set the curriculum. So, you know, we now have a civics test in 8th grade, right? Like, so what do you think we're going to teach in 8th grade? What's your civics? So, I mean, they do center us on certain things, and you know.
I mean,
I do think we should have civics in 8th grade.
I'm just,
Like, I'm in favor of that, but yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just curious. that's all.
well, I think you can go. I think that can happen both ways, right? I think sometimes you do think you're doing something that's wonderful and is helping, and then suddenly we just stop doing it, and then we wonder like, why aren't we doing that anymore? Or you're doing something and it's just something we've already done and no one knows why we're doing it anymore, right? So unless we're actually asking that question and getting together and talking about it and looking at the data, and you can only do so many initiatives too. Like, you know, and I wasn't always good at this, but like you gotta kind of pare it down to some of the initiatives that are really important, and you gotta know what those are. In my experience as assistant superintendent and superintendent, I've gotten so much better at that. So this is, you grow as a leader. And so I think, Katie, that's the key, is making sure that you know exactly why you're doing it and that you're sticking to what's really important in terms of initiatives, while inspiring people to do things. You're welcome.
Dr. Sullivan, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
This forum, so if anybody else has a question, we'll take some time.
Yeah, no, this has been good. So I mean, like, yeah, well, again, just to kind of, any other questions? I want to make sure I get all the questions. Just to reassert what I said in the beginning, that this job is very important to me for so many reasons. It really is, to me, the job that I feel I've been working for my whole life, because it's all about my heart. This job is about my heart, and there's no other job that is. You know, and this is a one opportunity for me. And like I said, I hope that as you know, you look at the candidates, that you determine that I am the right person. I'll say that this is my chance to make a real positive stamp on the town I've loved for my whole life, and that I continue to live in. And you know, hopefully I get that opportunity. And if I don't, I'm still with you. So you got that as well. I'm gonna get that for you.
My mother, yes.
I know.
Like, that would be great.
That's all I have, Sean.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.